afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us here at Johnson Space Center for the Expeditions 59 and 60 Crew News Conference. We're excited to be here with Nick Hague and Christina Koch to talk more about their mission. Alexei Ovchinin, their Soyuz commander, couldn't be with us today. He is in Star City, Russia, training. So Nick, Christina, and Alexei will be launching to the International Space Station with liftoff from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan on February 28th. 6:42 p.m. Central Time, and they'll return to Earth in October. So next to me is NASA astronaut and U.S. Air Force Colonel Nick Hague. Nick was selected for a mission to the space station, which launched on October 11th, just 2 months from yesterday. And unfortunately, he and his commander for that mission, which was Alexei Ovchinin, had to abort the mission when a rocket booster malfunctioned shortly after launch. Thankfully, the rocket worked just like it was supposed to. They landed safely, and now he is ready to launch just a couple of months later. So we're excited to hear about your next launch, and we are excited to see you and Alexei on the space station. And then we have Christina Koch, NASA astronaut Christina Koch. Christina will be a flight engineer for Expeditions 59 and 60, and Nick will also be a flight engineer. Alexei will be the flight engineer for Expedition 59 and the commander for Expedition 60. I also want to point out some special guests here in the room with us today. We have first robotics competition high school students from the local Houston area. So thank you for joining us. Each year, teams of high school students, coaches, and mentors work during a 6-week period to build game-playing robots. And many of our Johnson Space Center engineers actually mentor those students. So we're glad you're here. And you'll have a chance to ask questions in just a little bit. So first, let's have Nick and Christina talk a little bit more about the mission from their perspectives, and then we'll take some questions for them. So with that, Nick, you recently had to abort a mission, and now you're ready to launch again. So can you tell us a little bit about the abort, how that was mentally and physically, and how you're feeling now?
Sure. A lot's happened in 2 months, really, when you think about it. So 2 months ago, Alexei and I were scheduled to launch on the Soyuz 56S, and we had an abort. The rocket failed. The separation event didn't go as planned about 2 minutes into our launch into orbit, and essentially the rocket came apart underneath us. The launch escape system worked flawlessly, and the recovery forces were there within minutes to pull us out of the capsule. And we both walked away pretty unscathed. So very thankful the way that it turned out, but it's a true testament to the team that's in place that takes care of us on a daily basis, whether it's launching into orbit or while we're working on orbit. So how am I feeling? I'm feeling great. I'm excited to have the chance to launch with a fellow classmate. And together, I think, collectively we're ready, Alexei and Christina and I, and it's going to be really thrilling to get my first mission to the station and be able to share it with Christina.
Yeah, I think we're all excited to see your launch and to see you both float through the hatch. That'll be really awesome.
It'll be a fun first to share together.
It will.
Yes.
It will. Okay, Christina, your first launch and space flight. So how are you feeling? What are you looking forward to?
Yeah, I mainly just feel very excited, very prepared and ready to put, all the years of training to work, give back to the program, contribute to the mission of international cooperation as well as science. So really just looking forward to kind of getting a chance to give back after all the years of great training and preparation that the team has given me. What I'm looking forward to most in the mission would just be carrying out the science. I feel also very grateful that Nick and Alexei have welcomed me into their crew with open arms, and we've had a chance to begin our training together. And so we just really feel ready to kind of pursue that goal together.
That's great. Thank you. Okay, now we're going to take questions for Nick and Christina. So we'll start with here in the room. If you have a question here in the room, raise your hand, we'll call on you. Wait for the mic to get to you, and then if you will stand, state your name and your affiliation for your question. So let's start back here with Ryan.
Ryan Korsgaard from Channel 2 here in Houston. Several of the commercial crew vehicles could arrive during your stay. Talk about how important that is for future trips like yours and future exploration. Both of you.
Yeah, sure. So I think that the launch of commercial crew, the launch of crews from Florida, bringing back that capability is vitally important to the station program as a whole. things don't always go right, and back in October that was an example of that. Having multiple ways to deliver crews to the space station can ensure that we can continue that mission that we're doing up there uninterrupted. The research and discovery that's taking place on orbit is why we're doing all of this, and being able to do that without pause is important.
Yep. And I would say I'm also very excited to be a part of ushering in that new era. It's a great goal that NASA had to sort of foster the commercial space industry. It's been a great success. So to be on the schedule for when the first actual crews are going to arrive, and again having some of those crews be our classmates and other members of the astronaut corps, to be able to open the hatch and welcome them aboard will be a great honor.
Great. All right, more questions here in the room? All right, over here.
Yeah, I'm Jim Oberg for Spectrum Magazine. Jim Oberg. And for Colonel Hague, you're not just retraining again, it's a different, 6 months later, different seasons and everything. How much of your training schedule and what you're learning how to do is different for this flight than it was just 2 months ago?
Yeah, so surprisingly, there are some things that are different. When you're scheduled to be on orbit on the station for a given period of time, there's a set of experiments, a set of systems that you're trained for, and those do change as we evolve the capabilities on the space station. And so the training focus that we have together is to work together as a crew first and foremost, and then secondly, I'm receiving what we call Delta training on all the differences between what was going to be there during my original planned expedition and what's planned now.
Great question, thanks. All right, any more questions here in the room? Mark?
Thank you, Mark Carreau from Aviation Week in Space Technology. I'd like to go back to the commercial crew question and ask each of you, if you can, to say what it is that you as space station crew members feel like you will do to support the success of the the significant milestones in 2019. And I know out there somewhere is the arrival of a second docking module and installation. But however you interpret what the crew does to make that a success, I'd be interested.
I can speak to one aspect, and I'll let Nick pick up on some others, but one interesting thing that we do to train to ensure mission success during a commercial crew vehicle visiting with crew is in changes to our emergency procedures. So we have very set procedures that have been in place for a long time, assuming certain vehicle docking locations. So it's really interesting when the team gets to figure out how do we ensure absolute success in the case of an emergency on board when we have crew docked at different parts of the station. So we work really hard in understanding those challenges and learning new procedures that cover us in all cases.
Just to add to what Christina said, in terms of bringing that capability on board, the first test missions are going to be they're unpiloted, and so we're going to have responsibilities to help monitor and maintain safety of flight and make sure things are going well in cooperation with the ground for those first missions. And you mentioned as well the addition of a docking adapter that we're going to put on top of the Node 2. We're going to need to perform spacewalks in order to make that addition as well. Those are advancements that we're going to need.
Thank you. Good question. All right, over here in front.
Hello, I'm Lori Van Hoos. I'm from the Paradox, which is an FRC team in Pearland. My question is, which upcoming experiment is the most interesting to each of you, and explain what they are?
I wasn't sure. I recently learned about an experiment that's going to be on board when I was there that sounded really interesting to me. My background is in physics and electrical engineering. So there's an experiment called the Cold Atom Laboratory. And in this experiment, they're going to create the coldest spot in the universe. And they're going to create something called a Bose-Einstein condensate, which is kind of a theoretical physics type of thing that's interesting because it goes into the quantum mechanics of the particle and wave nature of the world. And so, thinking back to my college years, I remember actually deriving these equations for Bose-Einstein condensates. And so the idea that that's becoming real and it's something we can actually create with the help of microgravity and make things actually actually colder than we can do in the presence of gravity here on Earth is kind of a really neat thing that I think is just a great example of why the orbiting laboratory with gravity as a variable is a neat thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's your role in that?
Astronauts, we're going to be doing the setup and installation and any troubleshooting, but it is what we call sort of a platform. So scientists can do experiments on it and sort of bid for the time on it, but we won't have any direct interaction to actually run the experiment while it's running. But we'll get a chance to, like I said, set it up and be there in case anything goes wrong and we need to make it better.
Yeah, while we're there, there's going to be 250, approximately 250 different experiments. And I think what's interesting is that we go through a 2-year training program to give us the skills that we need to be able to do these experiments, but we don't receive training on every individual experiment. 2/3 of the experiments we're going to perform on orbit we won't have seen until we get to orbit. That's just how dynamic the program is. And so the ones that I tend to think of most are the ones where I'm the guinea pig. And so we've got sets of experiments that we volunteered to be the human test subject. And so those are the ones that you really get familiar with on the ground leading up to launch. And it ranges everything from just measuring what's coming out of your exhalation and how your lungs function to giving blood to MRI scans to muscle biopsies. It kind of runs the gamut.
Great question. Thank you. All right, more questions here in the room over there.
Hi, I'm Anissa. I'm also from Team 5414 Paradox. And I was wondering, with the recent maintenance needed on the ISS, such as the hole that has appeared recently and how they were trying to cut into it yesterday, have you guys trained for any maintenance on the ISS, planned or unplanned, and how do you train for the unplanned?
So that's a significant part of our job. There's maintenance both inside and outside. And so we receive, in the 2 years leading up, we receive extensive training so that we understand the systems of the station and how they work together. And we perform those basic maintenance functions that we can predict we're going to need to do, both inside and outside. To do the outside requires a whole lot more training, though, because you have to do a spacewalk. And that's one of the more exciting things that we get to do during training is to put on a spacesuit and go under the water in the neutral buoyancy lab and work side by side to accomplish a task.
Very good. All right, more questions over here.
Hi, my name is Sophia Diggins from the FRC team, the Robonauts, and my question specifically for Ms. Christina Koch. So having done scientific research in the South Pole, in remote places such as the South Pole, how long did it take for you to set in that you were going into space? And what skills that you mastered in the South Pole do you plan on using once in the International Space Station?
That's a great question. Thank you. I did have the opportunity in my career to work at several remote science bases, and in a lot of ways, it's similar to some of the challenges, both scientifically and just life-wise, that you face in the International Space Station, the remote nature, and basically having to be the eyes and ears of scientists that aren't able to be there in the present. So I learned a lot of skills about observation, maintenance, troubleshooting, being able to communicate when maybe things are going wrong, some suggested ways that you can fix that situation, and also dealing with communication lag or lack of communication at times. At the South Pole, we only had communication with the outside world at the times when we actually had a satellite over the horizon, which was about 8 hours a day. So just becoming comfortable with self-reliance when it's needed and good communication when that's required, and just learning a general kind of toolkit of maintenance skills as well as specific skills for specific experiments and doing the training beforehand to do that. So I hope that training serves me well, and I definitely think back on it a lot in the last couple of years when I was training for the space station, and think back on all the things that I learned in the South Pole and in the Arctic that feed into it.
Do you think that some of your work in the South Pole and in the Arctic could be more remote than even on the space station with the communication? And
Well, it is interesting in some ways. You could say that it's similar. For example, at the South Pole, there's 8 months out of the year where they're not able to fly an airplane in, so same kind of a thing, you know, no mail, no fresh food, no supplies, no spares. So in some ways, you could say the challenges are different and greater in some ways, less in others. But you know, being agile and adaptive to that situation is another skill that that type of role can give you.
Yep, you're ready. You're ready for space. All right, more questions here, over here.
Hi, I'm Angel Cruz from the First Robotics Team 231. What has been the major obstacles you have faced or you think you're going to face later on?
So I think when you start training, because once you're assigned, you know, the normal training flow is 2 years prior to launch. You're assigned, and then you've got this training plan that's going to get you ready to launch. And when you start that, you're at the base of this really tall mountain, and you're looking up at all the things that you've got to learn in order to be successful once you get on orbit. And so that's pretty daunting when you start. And I think that, I mean, it's great because we have such a huge team here on the ground that helps us through all of that. We don't do this on our own. We rely on this massive team of trainers that are system experts that understand the ins and outs of their system. And they work with us side by side over those 2 years to make sure that we are ready. And you know, even when we're on orbit, if we've got questions about how things are going, they're always available to reach out to and to continue they continue to support us along the way. So I think the biggest obstacle is just the sheer volume of things that you've got to know. And you can't be successful without the team of hundreds or thousands on the ground that are working with us on a daily basis to make us successful.
Yeah, I think something that really strikes me, and just shadowing you a couple of days ago, the different types of activities you do in one day from training can go from very physical training to very, you know, hardcore science training to being in the pool. I mean, all of these different things you have to do.
It's very diverse, and for the high school students that are in the audience, I think it might mirror what you experience on a daily basis. You go from one subject to the next subject, and they may be completely different, and you just do that 5 or 6 times, and then your day is over, and it goes by really quick. So high school is very similar to being an astronaut.
That's a good point, because in a lot of jobs, you just do the same thing every day, all day, and not in school, and definitely not with being an astronaut. So that's good. All right, another question down here.
Hi, Sophie Sanchez, Cosmic Chicago with Chicago Now. My question's for Christina. One of my favorite hashtags on Twitter has been to follow your astronaut candidate TBTs. I was wondering if you had any special plans to share anything, because that was a really great behind the scenes aspect for a lot of my readers to follow and really engage and see what it takes to train. So my question is, do you have anything special that you're going to be sharing behind the scenes, or anything you want to while you're on station?
Thanks for that question, and thank you for following along with that hashtag. It was really fun to be able to share our 2-year initial training in retrospect, just to share everything that we had done. At the time, we were a little too busy to think about sharing anything in social media, but it was great, like I said, to have the chance to kind of go back in time and walk through those 2 years, even for myself. So I think that, you know, most astronauts on board do really engage in outreach through social media, and I definitely plan to do that. You know, one of the great aspects of being an astronaut is that you're kind of carrying the dreams of everyone when you go with you, and part of that responsibility is to give back by sharing it. So I definitely hope to do that. You know, just from a personal standpoint, it's always been a goal of mine to kind of, I see my typical shares into 2 categories. One are kind of the nerdy science ones that always engage me and make me excited, and the other is more of a lifestyles. I like to present the day-to-day challenges of the things that we face, because I think a lot of times they relate back to the day-to-day challenges that everyone faces, whether it's at your job or at school that day. You know, I can be just as frustrated with the smallest task that I'm doing in a maintenance activity, or it can be, you know, grandiose. So just sharing kind of the day-to-day is something that I hope to do when I'm on board. Haven't thought of the hashtag yet, though. Watch for it.
That's awesome. I think we're all excited to see what you guys share. I mean, every I love seeing all the posts that come down from the space station, but every astronaut has their own different perspective and spin that they put on it. So just so everyone knows, Nick and Christina both are on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, so you can follow along their mission the whole time. All right, another question, Mark?
Thank you, Mark Carreau with Aviation Week again. I think my question is specifically for Nick, but I'd be glad to have two answers. Did you watch the spacewalk yesterday, and what has it done for your confidence for the partnership, NASA, Russian, and the three others, to address some rather significant problems, as you prepare and have taken some risk and demonstrated your ability to handle it? I guess I'm trying to figure out what you're thinking now about that.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to watch a lot of the spacewalk yesterday. We were training and busy throughout the day. I did get to see some of the highlights and follow along through just status updates that came out of Mission Control. Obviously, everybody was very interested in the spacewalk. In terms of my confidence in everything, I've got very good confidence in our organizations, NASA, Roscosmos, the space station program as a whole, to work together to find solutions to the problems as they're coming up. Whether it's our launch abort or it's the hole that they found in the Bayou that they've been able to patch. Those are examples of challenges that the program has faced, and they've worked together cooperatively, collaboratively, and I just think it shows the strength of the program. And so I have a lot of confidence in the program to continue to move forward and to continue to make it as safe as possible. You mentioned risk. Obviously, there's risk associated with anything we're doing on orbit or trying to get to orbit. And we accept those risks because we know why we're doing what we're doing. It all boils down to the science and the discovery, whether it's trying to expand our knowledge of our environment around us on the ground or of ourselves, or we're trying to prove out the technologies that are going to take us back to the moon. That's why we're doing it. It's really important.
Good question. Okay, so now we'll go for a question on the phone bridge. If you have a question, please press *1. And if your question is answered already, then please press *2 to withdraw your question. We have Bill Kruger from NC State Alumni Magazine. Go ahead with your question.
Hi, this is for Christina. You once told me that going to the space station would be a dream assignment for you, and I'm just wondering if you can elaborate, now that it's becoming a reality, on what makes it a dream. And then my second quick question is, will you be taking any NC State gear along with you?
To answer the first question, yes, that's absolutely true. It has been a dream of mine, and to be so close to that dream coming true really just brings into focus why that was a dream of mine to begin with. And it boils down to the fact that the International Space Station is just that, a worldwide collaboration that demonstrates our ability to sort of rise above any political interests, and as humans kind of pursue the same goal and to work together to do that. And then in addition, the goal that we get to do in that collaboration is also lofty: science, discovery, exploration. So those are all the things I've loved kind of in my career, like we said, working in the Arctic and Antarctic, and I also did space science instrumentation. There was always this kind of science on the frontiers that always drew me in. And so to kind of take that to what I see as, you could say, the next level on the space station, again, it's just a dream come true. And like I shared before, to be able to bring that back down to folks and share that experience with anyone else that may also have that dream is just part of that. In terms of NC State gear, yes, of course, I plan to bring up some Wolfpack Pride gear. I learned a lot there. Obviously, NC State prepared me for what I'm doing right now, and I'm glad to kind of remain in touch with the university and get a chance to do that.
Thank you, Bill. All right, we'll take a couple of questions from social media now. If you have questions on social media, you can ask them using #AskNASA. So we have Leah over here.
This question is from Stephanie, who asks, did you ever expect to have three of your astronaut classmates on the space station at the same time?
No, I think it's safe to say that no, that was not the initial expectation. And if you looked at the flight plan and all of the assignments 2 years ago as we were all being assigned to missions. It's not turned out like we originally planned, but that's life. And the silver lining is being able to be up there with classmates for Expedition 59 and Expedition 60. We're gonna have the majority vote up there, so it'll be a lot of fun.
Another question, and this is for Nick from Junior Craft. Did you have to go through more training between the launch abort and your next launch?
And so I alluded to this earlier a little bit. There is additional training that's required. So we have a different Soyuz crew, so we need to train together so that we're familiar with each other and we can operate effectively within the Soyuz. The emergency procedures, we need to, on the station, learn to run the emergency procedures together. They're the same procedures that we are familiar with, but we need to learn how to do them together. And then, kind of the last part is that any of the changes in the system, any of the modifications and advancements in the capability of the space station that weren't planned for when I was originally going to be there, but now are going to be on board during my time, I've got to adjust for that as well and receive that Delta training.
All right. One from Fro, who wants to know if astronauts carry any personal mementos from home when they launch.
Yes, we are able to do that. There is a small allotment for our own personal effects. I like to tell people it can be considered about the size of 2 shoe boxes. And it's a mix of things that you might just pack on any trip that you like, creature comforts, and also a mix of things that are meaningful to your trainers, your friends and family, things that you want to carry into space to be able to bring back to people to show gratitude or appreciation as kind of a memento of the meaningfulness of your journey. So yes, we are allowed to bring a small amount of things, and of course that's something that we think very hard about since it is such a small item. And the great thing is our team takes care of us in many other ways. All of our other food and clothing and other provisions that we may need, office supplies, there's a great team of people that make sure that we have everything we need on board.
All right, great questions. Okay, we'll go back to some more questions in the room. Do we have questions over here? All right. Just wait for the mic.
Hi, I'm Alan Jiang. I'm from Paradox Robotics, and I'm wondering what made both of you stand out in the extremely selective astronaut selection process.
I have no idea.
First of all, no idea. When I get that question, my first answer is I have no idea. I'm extremely fortunate and extremely lucky. But if I think back to the actual interview portion, I think of what things was the interview committee interested in talking about. And unlike many of my other technical job interviews, they didn't ask me electrical engineering questions about something I designed or specific skills on a green board level. But what they did ask me about was things like rock climbing and how that shaped my level of confidence. Things about my travel, things about my adaptability in different situations. So that, just based on the types of questions that I got and kind of where the conversation led during my interview, it seemed to be that those were the types of things that the committee was most interested in hearing about.
Yeah, I agree with Christina 100%. When you look at the class that they selected, so there were 8 of us in the class, we're all very diverse in our experience, our backgrounds, where we come from. It's very different, but there are certain things that unify us. One of those is having experiences in austere environments, whether it's military and being deployed or whether it's living on Antarctica, being in stressful situations. And then the other thing that I really want to say that you guys are doing something that is beneficial to you in the very long run is I think that all of us had experience working in a small team and having to work together to accomplish an objective. And you're doing that in the program that you guys are part of. Learning how to resolve conflict with each other and be effective as teammates is a really valuable life skill.
Great question. All right, more questions over here.
Hello, Reed Blanchard from FRC Team 118, the Robonauts. So in the face of all these incredible opportunities, how do you stay focused on the task at hand and keep from getting overconfident?
I don't struggle with overconfidence. I want to make that clear. No, I think it's a great question. Obviously, there is a sense of confidence that you have to take in with you. And I would say that in terms of focusing with all the diverse amount of skills that we are expected to master coming in, it's really just, I would say, a skill in and of itself to remain focused. And I have learned something that I sort of tell students especially, that I learned this skill actually rock climbing, which is turning fear into focus. So taking things that you have apprehension about and channeling that into a level of focus and a level of understanding of what you may need to do to maintain a certain level of preparation. So that's something that I mentally focus on. But yeah, the over amount of confidence, they make sure that we don't necessarily struggle in that area.
Good question. Okay, next to him over here.
Hi, I'm Stephen Wu. I'm also from First Robotics Team 119, the Robonauts. My question is, what is the one task you most look forward to accomplishing during your time on the space station?
For me, it's getting to orbit. The time up there is going to be full of all of these firsts, and it's different for everybody. I think I've spent a huge chunk of our training on the ground is trying to prepare for a spacewalk, whether it's getting suited up and helping people suit up, or it's working outside the station and practicing that in the NBL. There's a significant amount of investment in that time. So professionally, the thing I'm looking forward to is the opportunity to maybe go out and do a spacewalk. Personally, just being able to float for 6 months and experience first person how my body's going to adapt to space is something that I think all of us are excited to do, and to know what flying in space feels like.
What about you, Christina?
Yep, I would echo exactly what Nick said. There are going to be a lot of firsts. They're all going to be exciting. I can tell you, I can't wait to do a spacewalk. Obviously, that's so true. I can't wait to be a part of exciting science. But I would say the overarching thing that connects all those various things I'm excited about together is the opportunity to give back to a program that I have loved since I was young, to be a part of it and to know that every day I get to actually move it forward and move the goals forward through my actual day-to-day work.
Very good. One down here, and then we'll get to you.
Hi, my name is Jared Weaver, and I'm from Paradox 5414. And did you always want to be an astronaut, and what inspired you to become one?
Yeah, I mean, ever since I was little, I wanted I was curious about space and wanting to, the idea of exploration and discovery and going out there and finding something new. It wasn't until much later for me, and I think everybody's path is different a little bit. For me, it was getting in the Air Force and then being exposed to flight test and seeing that that's a very similar type of job to what we do here, and understanding, okay, yes, professionally, this is something that I am good at and something that I really enjoy doing, so I wanted to try.
And I, too, have wanted to be an astronaut since I was very little. And I would say what inspired me from a young age is kind of surprising, because I grew up in a small town. So in my town, I didn't even see really examples of people being engineers or even in technical fields. So my first exposure to the outside world and to this concept of, science and discovery on the frontiers that has sort of defined my career was through magazines that we had in my house, magazines about travel, about science, and reading those and recognizing that there was a whole world out there that was part of that fell under that umbrella. So that was where the inspiration first started. Things like the family trip to Kennedy Space Center sort of solidified it, and then discovering that I had a passion for science and math going through school and just continuing to follow that. But the initial spark was just seeing what was out there in the world and just being fascinated by it. I used to cut out pictures from those magazines of maps of Antarctica, put them up in my room and things like that. So that was what it was for me.
That's great. It's kind of cool that you both are from small towns and now in Houston, a big town, doing big things. So that's cool. And I wanted to ask you, Nick, a little more. Can you talk a little bit more about your experience in the Air Force, what you did there?
Sure. For me, the Air Force prepared me to do this job. Just the diversity of experience and the diversity of opportunity that you're exposed to is amazing. So we're an Air Force family. I'm married to an Air Force officer. We've deployed lots of places. We've had practice being apart from each other. But I think it's really helped provide us a strong foundation as a family, especially for something like this coming up, a space flight, knowing that my wife is much more capable than I am. So any worries about anything that's on the ground, I know that it's in good hands, and so it's been a wonderful opportunity being part of the Air Force. And I'm pretty thankful for all the opportunities that they've given me, whether it was doing flight test or working in a research lab or working on Capitol Hill or being a professor at a university. I couldn't have scripted all of those opportunities, and so there's a lot that's I owe to them to giving me my experience base.
Very good. That's great. It's nice that you can not worry about things when you're in space, and I know that all of the military families go through things very similar to the both of you when you're traveling during training, and then of course when you're in orbit. So that's good. Okay, you have another question down here?
Jim Oberg with Spectrum. In your very tight schedule, which runs through August, right? Do you have any plans on July 20th to put a few minutes aside to mark the 50th anniversary of the first human step on the moon?
I don't think we can let that opportunity go by without giving it the notice that it deserves. 50 years will have passed since the landing on the moon, and we're going to be on the station in space, performing experiments, helping to prove out some of the technologies that are going to allow us to go back to the moon in a more permanent fashion. So it's going to be a thrilling time to be on orbit.
Anything to add, Christina?
Nope, he said it perfectly. We're just looking forward to commemorating such an exciting time in space history and at the same time being a part of it.
I'm glad you brought that up. It'll be very exciting to celebrate such a significant milestone, the 50th anniversary of the moon landing, and to have our crew in space to celebrate it with. Yes, absolutely. And looking forward to all the research that you will be doing on board that'll help us get back there and eventually onto Mars someday. So it's very exciting things. All right, do we have any other questions here back there?
Yes, my name is Adan Moreno from Team 231 High Voltage. I'd like to ask you, since you're going in space with colleagues, do you feel like you have a better bond since y'all are together every single day?
I can start to answer that. I would say that that's definitely the case. We do have a strong relationship with everyone in the astronaut corps, but obviously there's something even stronger when you came onto this job together from diverse backgrounds and trained together. There's kind of an understanding when Nick and I train together. We kind of can anticipate each other's moves before we even do them. I was reflecting on the fact that way back in probably 2014, when we first had our very first Soyuz familiarization training, and we basically just got in the Soyuz for the first time to look at it, look at what the interior of the capsule was. I was actually in that training with Nick. So the first time I was ever in a Soyuz, it was with Nick, and that was probably 4 to 5 years ago. So there's a lot of history there.
That's cool. Very cool. And for you, Nick, and just your relationship with Alexei, because of course you guys were during a very serious situation together, and now you'll be launching again together. So can you talk a little bit about your relationship with Alexei and how that bond works?
Yeah, so we spent the better part of 2 years in Star City training with each other and getting to know each other to the level and to the degree that I think Christina just described about us knowing each other as classmates. You can predict what they're thinking. You kind of expect certain habit patterns. You know that you can rely on them and trust them with anything. And so it's really special to be able to combine everybody together into one crew, and it'll be awesome to sit on the launch pad and launch in space with them.
Yeah, very cool. All right, I think we have a couple more questions over here.
Hi, yes, I'm Ashley Sanchez from Team 231 High Voltage, and my question is, are you two emotionally prepared to go into space for such a long time?
I would say from my perspective, and having talked to Nick, we're both very prepared emotionally, skills-wise, and mission-wise. I think that emotional preparation for us started a long time ago. NASA does a great job of incorporating in the crew training a preparation for that long duration flight. We have what we call expeditionary behavior training. So we have been mentally preparing for what this means to both ourselves, our crew, our families since day one. They've really put a strong focus on that, and it's paid off, and I know that we both feel very ready.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good question. All right, another question over here.
Hi, I'm Kimberly Salas from 231 High Voltage. So with the responsibilities that you already have, do you ever take on any additional ones? And like, why would you do that? And and how would you meet the demands for the additional ones?
I'll take this one real quick, but I'm sure you have plenty of your own. Something that's always been important to me in my life has been having an aspect of community service. So even though I do sort of have long days at work quite often, and I do travel a lot, I've tried to make time for something that I've done in that vein for many, many years, which is tutoring. So I have some folks in my neighborhood that I tutor, and I've tutored at the high school and college level so that's something that I do in the evenings when I get home. And although oftentimes it isn't necessarily something I feel like I have time for, it actually always ends up giving back more to me than I've given in terms of the time. It always, kind of fills up my emotional reservoir, and so it's something that I encourage in other people, and I do feel really lucky that I still have the opportunity to do that, even with a busy schedule.
That's great. Anything to add, Nick?
Yeah, so we're people. So we have hobbies, we have interests, we have families, and so I like to spend the time that I have when I'm not traveling away, doing things with our young boys, and having fun with them. So astronauts are people too.
All right. Any more questions on the side of the room? One more.
Hi, my name is Cameron Langford with Courthouse News Service. Yeah, I was wondering how much you'll have to work out up there to combat muscle atrophy.
Mm-hmm. So every day on the timeline, we have a 2.5-hour block of exercise. That includes getting ready and cleaning up afterwards, but it's about half aerobic activity and half of weightlifting activity. And it's a team on the ground that prescribes us our different workouts, and it's all designed to counteract bone loss and muscle loss while we're on orbit.
Obviously, you can't run in space like you can on the ground, so can you talk a little bit about how those machines work and weightlessness?
Yeah, so if you can imagine a treadmill in space, if I would to push off on the treadmill to run forward, I'd end up floating away from the treadmill. So we put on a harness and strap ourselves to the treadmill with bungee cords so that it always pulls us back down to the treadmill. But it's the same type of treadmill that you could find in any gym here on the ground. The weightlifting is a little bit different. We use bar and cable exercises, but those are pulling against plungers that draw on a vacuum rather than actually lifting a weight, because on orbit, we'd lift it, it'd start moving, and there'd be no resistance. So the machines are different. The principles are the same. If you're going to do a deadlift on the ground, you use almost the same form to do the deadlift on orbit.
Very good, thanks. Okay, we have a couple more questions on this side.
Hi, I'm Jenny Knapp from Team 118, the Robonauts, and I was just wondering, since many of us here are going off to college soon, how has your degree and your college experience helped prepare you for your journey that you're about to take?
I would say that in addition to the academics that you have in college, which is very, very important, obviously, the extracurricular things that you pursue is also very important. So I was fortunate that the college I went to offered a lot of different diverse experiences outside the classroom. And then in addition, the classroom experiences that for me, I found most valuable were the ones sort of later in the degree process where you're actually getting to do a lot more hands-on things and working in teams, exactly like you all are doing. In terms of choosing what you study, it's all about what you're passionate about. To me, that ensures that you're going to find the most success and the most genuine happiness and fulfillment. So finding what you love, pursuing it, and then not being afraid to go out of your comfort zone. One bit of advice that I give to people entering into college is do what scares you. And what I mean by that is if there's something that you have apprehension about, if there's something that when you think about it, it gives you a little bit of a feeling of being afraid, and you may see that as a sign of something you should shy away from, I say run to those things, because those are the things that when you do accomplish them, you achieve not only the success in having that accomplishment, but in addition, get a lot of self-confidence, and that basically just pays dividends beyond the experience. Good luck.
Great question. Okay, another one over here.
Hi, I'm Andrew Moore from Paradox 5414. So I had a question: if either of you foresee like any innovations that will modify your experience during your expedition.
That's a good question. You know, one thing that comes to mind, given that you all are participants in robotics, is there's a device on station called Robonaut, which it sounds like you know about, and it's actually scheduled to fly again on our mission. And the interesting thing about that is they're looking at ways that Robonaut can be an assistant to astronauts in doing tasks that may take time but not require a lot of high-level skills. So looking at how we can incorporate that and make it a real efficiency saver, and especially how that can be used in future missions, setting up a moon base before astronauts arrive and things like that, doing installations. So it's going to be our privilege to be a part of that experiment and to see how that could, augment the reality of our mission.
All right. And one last question on the front.
So, last summer, I was volunteering at a summer camp, and some kid told me that he wanted to be an astronaut when he grows up. And I didn't know what to tell him other than compliment his decision. But from y'all, what advice or words of wisdom would you give to him?
I think if I was going to give one piece of advice, it's to find what drives you. You know, Christina was talking about finding your passion. Find your passion, and you'll get excited about what you're doing, and you'll do really great things. And if you do really great things, then additional opportunities open up, and then there's this cascading effect where another opportunity opens, and before you know it, you've amassed this experience base, not because you chose everything that you wanted to do because it was going to make you competitive for something, but it was because you had this passion in life and you were racing after it. And I think that's, if you look at each member of the astronaut corps, that's something that is common amongst us all, is that we found something that we really love. And it's not the same thing for all of us. It may have been medicine. It may have been engineering. It may have been flying planes. So it could be completely different, but everybody was passionate about what they were doing. So don't try to figure out what's going to make you competitive to be an astronaut. Find out what is your real passion in life, and just go for it.
That's great advice, and I think that's a good note to end on. So thank you all for being here today. Thank you for your great questions. Thanks to those of you who tuned in online and on NASA TV. So make sure to watch these guys in NOAA launch on February 28th at 6:42 p.m. You can watch live on NASA TV, online at nasa.gov/live, or on Facebook Live on the International Space Station Facebook page. You can also follow updates, as I mentioned, from Nick and Christina on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Nick is at Astro Hague, and Christina is at Astro_Christina. And so make sure you follow along with their mission. You can always follow the space station and learn more about the space station at nasa.gov/station.